Hey everyone, I'm back, and today we're going to be talking about The Age of Innocence, and this movie is directed by Martin Scorsese, and it stars Daniel Day-Lewis, Michelle Pfeiffer, Winona Ryder, and I've been looking forward to this movie for a long time, and it was just on my watch list, and I was curious to check it out because it was something that was different from Martin Scorsese, because it was just a more straightforward romance movie instead of like a crime thriller like he usually does in a lot of his movies. And I was curious to check it out for that reason, and I did mention that I tried watching like half an hour of it and then gave up. But this time I sat through the entire thing, and I'll say that it was pretty good. I liked a lot about this movie, and I liked the characters, and I love the performances, I love the music, and this movie has a good sense of style, and it looks nice, and there's a lot about this movie that I love in concept, and in execution to some extent I do love. And there are scenes in this movie that I really love. My favorite stuff in the movie is the third act. I really love the third act. That's where everything comes together for me, and once we got to that point in the movie, that's where I was like, okay, I kind of love this movie. And I do love the scenes with Michelle Pfeiffer. I think she's a good character to follow, even though she's not the main character. And I do like the journey that our main character goes on. That stuff I find to be interesting, and there's a lot of directions that this movie could have gone down that would have ruined it for me, and I can't say what these things are because I don't want to spoil anything, but I do think it was well handled and it was interesting and entertaining enough for me. And now I'm going to get into my issues with the movie, and my biggest criticisms with this movie is the narration and the pacing. And not that the entirety of the film was boring to me, it's just that I'll get into more detail later, but it didn't feel justified to me. I felt as though there was like something missing here. And the first half hour of the movie, I would say, is the worst part of the movie, because most of that first half hour is narration, and it's like explaining everything and trying to like get you up to speed so you have a good understanding of what kind of story you're getting into. And honestly, most of that narration could have been cut out. And I just felt as though it was like distracting, and it kind of turned the movie into a documentary, like I was watching a documentary almost. I was like, this just feels unnecessary. And most of what we are being told through this narration is something that could have been interpreted if you were to watch the movie multiple times and found out after the fact, but instead all of that is kind of ruined because of the narration. But after the first 30 minutes, it really started to get going for me, and then the rest of the first act was great. And then we get into the second act, and about halfway through the second act, that's where it started to drag for me again. And the reason for this is because I just felt after a certain point it was very repetitive, like we were just being shown the same few scenes over and over again, and I was just waiting for something big to happen, like some kind of build-up, but instead we're just being shown, I guess, somewhat of a progression over the course of the film. I was not having it, I have to admit. I just was getting sick and tired of it. I was like, this can end now. There's no real reason why this movie had to be over 2 hours long. Could have been an hour and 45 minutes, honestly. And the movie would probably sit perfectly for me. But instead, there's like some weird choices that this movie makes for me, and I was just not for it. And there were also some weird editing choices that I wasn't big on toward the beginning. And I just felt as though it could have been handled a lot better. And after a certain point, I kind of lost interest in following the characters because of the lack of new things being introduced. But once we get into the third act, all of that is made up for, and I'm like, yes, finally, something great. Like, something new is happening. Finally. And it was kind of a chore to get to that point, but the payoff is worth it, in my opinion. Not trying to imply that everything that I had an issue with beforehand is made up for. Like, it's not a 10 out of 10 movie for me, but it bumps it up from a good movie to a great movie for me, or at least in my eyes, and I was happy that I saw it. And it's just such a shame that about half hour to 45 minutes of this movie was really dragging it down for me with a bunch of unnecessary, dull things that I could do without, and the rest of the movie is great. And that's about all I have to say about The Age of Innocence, especially like without spoiling anything. There's still lots of great scenes in this movie that I do love, and I like where the story goes. I think it's a good story. It's just that it could have been shorter and less narration, and it just would have sit perfectly for me, but that's not the movie that we got. So, in the end, great movie, just has room for improvement in my eyes. And with all that being said, I'm going to give The Age of Innocence an 8 out of 10. Thank you for watching my videos as always. If you enjoyed this review, be sure to leave a like and comment down below what you thought of The Age of Innocence, and my social media links, they will all be in the description, so follow me there. And last but not least, subscribe to be a part of Foley Nation, and I'll see when I get my next review up, and that is going to be for Raging Bull, another Martin Scorsese movie. And this is one of his most popular movies, and I'm kind of hoping, because I did have an issue with the pacing with Age of Innocence. I'm hoping that that doesn't affect my experience with Raging Bull, because Martin Scorsese, he doesn't typically make really fast-paced movies. He likes each scene to like take its time, and I'm just hoping that it doesn't affect my experience with Raging Bull, because I have tried to watch this movie before, and I gave up half an hour in because I was just not in the mood. But this time I'll watch the entire thing, and I'll tell you how I feel this time. So look forward to my review of Raging Bull, but until I get that up, thank you for watching and have a great day.